How would you solve a hard problem? A problem that's blocking your game progression or a project of your own, and you spending several days on it. You ran out of ideas, and the problem is still there. Some problems are easy, and almost like an act of brilliance, you can solve them pretty quickly and know where to go, how to fix them. But from time to time, you run into really difficult challenges. In that case, this was my case last week. What happened with my game was that I was beginning to notice some artifacts for a while, and I wasn't sure where they're coming from. And over time, they actually got worse. And about a week ago, my game would just start crashing just a few seconds into it. And that's when I decided, all right, I don't want to use my backup settings that were working just fine. I wanted to get this particular graphical mode to work well and stable without any issues at all. And so I decided to devote all my time into it, and I spent probably about a week or longer to actually fix it and address it. It was not a straightforward path. It was definitely a tough problem to figure out. But in the process of it, I've figured out some helpful steps that would help you address any kind of hard problems that you might run into as well in whatever field you're in. Specifically, hard problem is when you already see that it challenges the upper limit of your skill, ability, and knowledge. And you're trying to accomplish it, and as you push forward, you just can't find a solution at all. As you keep working on it for a few days, you might actually just run out of ideas completely. Like I have, I ran out of all ideas on how to address the problem. And so I found myself having no ideas what to do. I was definitely at the limit of my skill and ability on this one. And yet I still wanted to fix it. And the problem was, how do you go about that? And so my thought process went as follows. This might be a hard problem, but I imagined myself 5 years from now when I have a lot more skill, a lot more knowledge in this area specifically. And if I had a time machine I could call into the future and ask myself from then, I'm sure I would have more ideas what to try. I'll be able to solve a lot quicker. But there's no magic getting from here to there. And if you can think of your own projects, your own skills, you can think back 5 years ago and compare how much more you've improved your skill and knowledge. There's no magic there. It just takes going through tough, challenging issues to go through, learning more skills, learning more tools, and with that, you'll get there. But on that time while you're working on this hard problem, you don't want to wait that long to get there. So then the question is, what can you do meanwhile now to help yourself unblock that issue as quickly as possible? And so I figured the real challenge here is that it's a lack of knowledge and understanding in the area. And so what I needed to do was to learn more tools, learn more in this area. And I figured as I go about that, I'll have something I keep trying, and eventually I'll find the cause and fix the problem. And so my particular issue has to do with computer graphics. This began as this white artifacts, this white boxes occasionally appearing for a few seconds on some of my characters. And they would actually eventually go away. So a while back I figured it's not a big deal yet, so I'll address them later. Plus I didn't know exactly what to look for, so I didn't know what the cause was. But over time, it got worse, and the game would just start crashing a few seconds into launching. And so that's when I put everything aside, and I just tackled it full on. At first, I've tried a few things, but the challenge of computer graphics is if your game just entirely crashes, you get no information at all. It doesn't tell you where it crashed, it just dies. In fact, it was amusing because as it crashes, your computer screen actually turns off entirely often. Because what happens is that the operating system watches your graphical card. And if it takes more than 2 seconds to just get stuck and do nothing, it will figure, all right, whatever's running on the device, I've caused it to stall, and just shuts down the video card and brings up again. And while it does that, your computer screen just goes black. So yeah, it was rough. The first tool I'll look to go deeper into is called Nsight Graphics. This is a tool made by NVIDIA, and I'm using NVIDIA video card as well. So that tool is free to use, so it's been amazing help to some degree. Now, Nsight Graphics allow you to analyze your computer game to see what's happening there under the hood on the lower levels. For example, it can take a look at some of the ray tracing structures for my game, but it wasn't that useful to address the crash. Because once the game crashes, the Nsight Graphics tool is not going to help you. So I needed more. That's when I went looking for some more tools to help me. And another one is Nsight Aftermath. Now, Aftermath was specifically designed to give you some information about the state of a video card when your game crashes. Now, that tool is something I had to actually integrate myself, and that took another day or so to figure out exactly how to get it right. There's a lot of details in there as well. But eventually got it working. That gave me some information, but even that wasn't that helpful. All it told me is that I might be even more confused of what the actual area to look for potential fixes. Because the way video cards work, just got a lot of things going on at the same time. And by the time something crashes, this might be like, half a few moments behind your current state of the game. So it's not easy to track it down. It was more about ruling out particular areas that maybe they're not the problem, but still was pretty challenging. In fact, it was amusing. At one point, I found a lecture from one of the NVIDIA engineers, and one of his slides for the Aftermath specifically said that, hey, we provide no easy answers. It's still going to be tough. We're just going to give you a clue, but not a full solution. So yeah, it's definitely a tough challenge. So then, as I went through all that, I figured it still needs to do something, because so far I haven't been able to solve it. So my solution to that was, in a state we have no ideas, you have no idea what to try or what to even could consider trying that would feasibly fix it. Or worse yet, I don't even know exactly what is crashing, what is broken, what does your game just die. I figure what I need to do is to tinker around in the area. Because this game I'm running it from scratch myself as far as graphical rendering goes, as far as computer graphics go. And so I figured, all right, I understand all the elements involved, what I'm doing here. Let's start from the bottom and just go one level up at the time. And every level I would consider, does this make sense? Maybe try to work it. Maybe I can change it a bit. Maybe that will give me a different result or give me some kind of clue what's going on. Just to keep me, primarily was doing this to keep me on the task so I wouldn't just entirely give up. Because as you think more about the challenge that you're facing, eventually you get some ideas. You might be just doing something else and suddenly get an idea, well, maybe if I tried this, maybe then it would work. And then run over and try it, no change. But eventually, as I was going through all my graphical code, eventually after maybe 2 or 3 days of doing that particular task, I happened to stumble on one particular point that made me think, like, maybe I shouldn't be doing that. Maybe it's somewhat unsafe. In fact, it was one of the points I was thinking a few months back, but I didn't see any problem at the time when I was trying that approach, so I figured it's fine. But that's when I changed that particular element, and finally that was the cause. And I knew the problem, how to fix it. So tracking back from the beginning, you start by focusing on the problem and you're trying out all your ideas, all your skills. and all your knowledge on it. But eventually you might run out of them. And if you do, still stay in the area and try to build both your knowledge in the area and also try to modify, tinker with your system, especially if you know it well. And if you don't, you definitely need to tinker some more to understand it more. And as you do that, you will find both that you will sporadically get some new ideas to try, and also you will gain more understanding. So looking back of all the new things I learned last week to solve this bug, maybe only 5% of that new knowledge was specifically useful to figure out that bug. The rest of that knowledge is just something that will be useful for me going forward in the future, which is an investment, so it's a good thing overall. But yeah, knowledge is definitely what you need to go after. If you're facing a tough problem and you don't know the solution to it, the primary cause I believe is that you lack the knowledge and the skill and also intuition in that technical area to even know where to look for. So as you tinker around and you learn more and you pick up on different tools and figure out how to use them in your code, eventually you will get closer and closer to that challenge, both because you're ruling out certain causes and also getting better ability to find what could give you a useful answer at all. For the fun of it, I want to give one super precise technical explanation of what was the bug coming from. Now, the specific bug was, in order to use ray tracing in video games, you have to build certain acceleration structures. And then against these structures, you can cast rays for each pixel in your screen. And wherever that ray hits, that essentially will be your pixel on the screen. That way you can do some fancy reflections and other effects. Now, while I was building that code myself, one of the approaches I have is to try to reduce the number of steps and logic in that system. If I can just avoid not doing something, that's what I do, just to try to make the system as efficient and as fast as possible. And one of those were, for every frame, I would try to avoid recreating the top level acceleration structure. And that's a structure that includes the whole scene, all the characters in it. I would still update it in place, but didn't bother to recreate it from scratch, because I figured it might be too slow, and hell, if it's still smaller when it fits into what was in the previous frame, I figured it would be fine. But no, it wasn't. Initially it was fine, but over time as the complexity of the scene arose, that's what led to weird artifacts and eventual crashes. I'm glad to figure it out. Now I can actually stress test the game some more, and it seems to be pretty stable. Haven't seen crashes for a while. Although it's hard to prove the positive here. I can only show the negative when I see the crash. So I have some more work to do in terms of adding test scenes to this graphical mode to make sure it's stable for a while with everything going on. So this was last week, figuring out how to solve a hard problem and also answering philosophical questions of how to learn what I learned last week in terms of the approach to it, so that next time these kind of challenges don't make me spend quite that much time. My next steps for the project, I think, will be either proper fancy hair simulation or perhaps going back to game logic, adding more abilities. But that's all for now, and I'll see you in my next update.